Okay, we're at the bus. This is take two. It's April 19th, 2019, and Friday. So we're here in the temporary paint booth. You can hear there's a little bit of a drizzle going on. It's a pretty bad storm coming through Florida here. I'm not so certain it's going to come all the way down here, but it was blowing like hell today, my wife said. I know it blew hard because one of the chairs on the pool deck ended up in the pool. So that's a pretty good blow. So anyway, what we're doing today is changing the locks on the compartments. A while back, I bought 3 of these for the other side. If you want to know what that's all about, I got some other videos. And after I got those installed, I came on this side of the bus, and there was a compartment here narrower than this one. It was only as wide as these rivets heads are right there. And in there was just some electrical junk that is needed for my air conditioners, my chassis air conditioners. But so I put this box in, and they've got this generic CH545 key that comes with the compartments. Even buying all 3 of these compartments and never asking for which key it had. Hey Roper, how you doing, buddy? All of them came with the same key. So I found these guys. I ended up buying them on Zorro. They were the best deal. So this will be at least a little bit more secure. I don't think you can pick these, man, and if you can, you're gonna have to earn your money. But pretty sure these are the right ones according to all the measurements that I could take. But I'm over here, and let me turn this thing around. Alright, sorry about that there. So on the back of the, here it is, sorry. I was taking this nut off, and it looks like I'm not gonna, oh yeah, I guess you can get the nut off. There you go. I was getting all frustrated because I couldn't figure out how to get the nut off of there. So, where are you at? There, I got it. Alright. I thought I was gonna have to take that and grind the end of that thing off or something, but there's that. Okay, let me turn this thing around. So here's the old one next to the new one. It looks like the new one's a little bit higher. I think it's going to be fine. They cut the lock when you buy them in the kit. It comes with, firstly, see that little washer right there? That sets it up so it's a 1/4 of a turn is all that the lock will move. There's another one in here somewhere. There it is down here. No, that's not it. Yeah, it's in the bag somewhere. There it is. So if you install this one, the lock has a 1/2 of a turn from limit to limit. I need a 1/4 of a turn because that's how this mechanism works. That way or that way. So I don't know why they would come with a 1/2 a turn. It just escapes me because you can't take the key out unless you go a 1/4 of a turn. If you go more than a 1/4 of a turn, the key doesn't come out of the lock. So I don't know. What's kind of neat, you can set this thing up how you put that washer on there, that if you were to unlock it, you can't take the key out until you lock it again. So it makes it, I guess, what they call sailor proof. But that sounds like a pain in the arse to me. So we're going to try to get this new guy installed in there. Oh yeah, what I was telling you is this little piece here they call it the cam. I don't know why they call it a cam, but it's just like a plate. So the plate can go on two ways, up or down, right? You know, like that way or that way. Or you can install the flat one that comes with it. I thought that I was going to need this one here because that's the way these look. But now that I've got the original lock out, I can see that there's a slight difference in the length of it. So I might end up using the flat cam. So that's how that comes, and the lock is on this side, and it's got a nut and a little lock washer. It's a little bit of a pain. I had to use this little file to file out some of the chrome inside the little quarter turn washer thing in there. But once I did that, it went right together. So let me put a little more time into this and I'll show you the results later. Okay, Houston, we have a problem. The fact that the replacement locks have a bolt on it instead of this rivet looking deal makes them unusable for this application unless I do some modifying, and I'm going to look into doing that because I really do want to have more secure locks. Let me show you what I mean. So this is how it locks. That's unlocked and that's locked. So when the mechanism is in place, let's see if I can do this. There. See how it clears right there? So when this one's in place, it's going to block it. So in order to make this work, I'm going to have to cut a notch in there. So let me think about that before I do it and let you know how that goes. Alright, so here's a better look at what's going on here. If I can get this in there. Push that down there a little bit. Yeah, I can't get it in there without the key. I got to turn the lock in order to get it to. There we go. There we go. All right. So when you turn the key, the cam in this position has already pushed this guy in, and then when you turn the key the other way, excuse me, it pulls this thing out. Okay. So with the new one, oh dang it, I left the. There we go, pretty good. With the new one, see how there's already a little notch in here. I'm gonna have to make that notch deeper so this will clear. The only part of this that's required is this area right here and the same area back there where it pushes in until the cam comes around, and then when the cam comes back, pushes on this side right here, and that's that. So I'm going to play with it some more and make sure I'm doing the right thing, and then I'll start doing some machining. So in order to get this piece out of the lock mechanism, I've got to take this snap ring off, and then this is an adjustment right here. This nut is an adjustment that compresses the spring, and it adjusts how close this wheel gets in, and therefore how tight it closes the door. So I'm going to try to count the threads and make sure I can put that right back in the same place. But like I said, I'm going to go back and get the key out of the bus and turn this thing back and forth and make sure that I can do what I really want to do. Okay, I reassembled it. So this would be unlocked, and that's locked. Alright, see that little unlocked? It looks like this little spot right there is kind of the helper. I don't know if it needs it or not. So what I'm seeing is there's no real value added by this area right here. Matter of fact, the whole rest of it, all I need is this one tang right there to do the unlock or the lock. Depending on how I install the lock, I mean, counterclockwise, just locked it. So I would want it the other way, where clockwise locks it, counterclockwise unlocks it. So this needs to be installed 180 degrees around, I think. Alright, yeah, I was mistaken about that. With the original lock, it can only be installed one way because the cam can't be positioned onto the other side of the lock. So the only way this works is to go clockwise to unlock it and clockwise to lock it. Opposite my logic that I'd like to have. But the new one, you can flip this thing around the other way and have it work any way you want. So I just need to make sure before I start cutting metal here which is the right side that I want the cam to be on in order for this thing to do what it needs to do. This thing. So that's going to take a little bit of time and patience to play around with that. And before I modify the lock at all, I'm going to completely modify this thing at however it's needed, and double check that it's going to do everything I need. And 'cause once I cut this, that's going to be really hard to put the metal back. So, all right, so we're here at the milling machine, and we're going to try doing this with a flat tang first, just because it'll be a little easier to work with. This thing measures 3/4 of an inch wide plus about 3/1000 of an inch, and the original one over there is right at 5/8 of an inch wide. So that's an 1/8 of an inch difference, which means I need to take a 1/16 off each side, which is really easy. But I want to be very precise about it. So what I want to do, I mean, rather than just putting this in the vise and eyeballing it, I want to have something to set it on down in there. So I made this a little while ago, or just now I made it. I just grabbed an old scrap piece of sheet metal, and I cut it on the table saw with a carborundum blade, just lightly feeding it through, just barely cutting, and then flipping it over this way, and cutting and flipping it over and cutting repeatedly, and till I had it thin enough where I could just break it off. And then once I got it through, I raised the blade up and I started running it through repeatedly until I got it really true, checking it with my dial caliper, that guy. And it was a little thin in the middle and higher at the top, so I got a piece of sandpaper and set it on top of the table saw, and I just sanded it back, and I got it to within 1/1000th of an inch true. It's still a little bit skinny, a 1/2 maybe in the middle, so I wanted to have one of these anyway for other jobs, so I took the time to make this so I could just drop that in the vise and it sets down on this surface back up in there, and now I can put that in there and it holds it perfectly flat, within reason, perfectly flat. So I can tighten my vise right there. I'm going to hold that down when I tighten the vise, and bring my mill cutter down just till it touches, and then trim off 1/16 of an inch by raising the table 62 thousandths, and then flip this thing over and raise the table 62 thousandths again, and it'll be right there on the money. And then we're going to go and give it a try. I'll test fit over there and see how it's going. Alright, well, I had some nice live action video, but I forgot to hit record. So what I did was stick this puppy down in there, tighten her up, and then I zeroed my, I tightened this in the vise, fired this thing up, and while traveling back and forth slowly, I was raising the table until it just started to touch. And then we're going to call that like 0, right? And then I set my elevation by adjusting my dial gauge here to 0. And I cut 1/16 of an inch off, which is 62 1/2 thousandths from one side. Then I took this out and put it back in the vise that way, and I raised up the table to 1/8 of an inch, and I cut the other side. And now I measure, and we're right at 0.625 inches, which is 5/8 of an inch, and the same as the original one. So now we're going to deburr this thing, and I'm going to play around and see how it fits in there with the flat one. And if it works, I'll stick with the flat one. If it gets too close to the little edge here and it looks like it might be problematic, I'll go with the other one there. But I think this flat one's going to be fine. I'm still going to have to notch this thing. I did a little testing, and I did prove that I can assemble the lock with this facing either direction, of course, on these flats. And I can set it up where turning the key clockwise locks it, and turning the key counterclockwise unlocks it. And if I want to, I can cut this side off, because that's the action side right there for doing that. Okay, I got it apart. It was pretty easy. Just like I said, took the snap ring off the top and just ran that nut out. There's 5 threads showing, so here's how this works. The shaft has got 2 flats on it, and you can see that this has got a wide area and a narrow area. When it goes in, this binds on the 2 flats and it won't let the shaft turn. Really nice design. This is all, looks like cast pot metal or something here, but it's heavy, man. It's nicely made. It's got a rubber grommet there where the latch handle rides up on. Very impressed. Buyers Truck Equipment, or Buyers Equipment. highly recommend, yeah, there it is, buyers. I highly recommend these compartments. Look them up on the net. I ended up buying it from Rayside Truck and Trailer. That's the distributor here that's local. So I noticed that this bend here is not quite a 90. So I'm going to put that in the vise and just help it out a little bit. And so I marked this, which side I could cut. I need to take it off right after this radius. And I'm going to stop right around here somewhere. So we're going to play around with that a little bit and figure out how I want to cut this thing. When I get it figured out, I'll show you. Alright, so I need to take off a little bit more, or bend that thing up a little bit. But so I want to show you. She's got a 90 where my thumb is, and this is now more like a 90. So I don't think I really had to do all that, but you know what, I'm here. So let me take this up right to where that the end of that radius is. I knew pretty much that's where I wanted to go, but I stopped short because it's better to kind of sneak up on it. So we're going to go back to the milling machine, set up like I had before, and trim a little bit more off, and then give it another test fit. Got it. That's all it needs. Right there. So I don't know if you could tell, but right here I trimmed off a little bit of that side to make it a little bit more pointy on one side. So that eliminates the interference with that right there. Where are you? Right here. When this piece fit in there too snugly, as it started to come around, it started pushing down too soon, and this piece hit right there. I guess I could have cut this back a little bit, but I don't want to make this any smaller. So it works great just how it is. And it's clockwise the lock and counterclockwise the unlock. Just how I wanted it. Alright, so now I gotta do this 3 more times for the 3 other compartments on the right side of the bus. And we'll see. I bought 5 locks. The 5th lock is gonna be for my gas door, my fuel door. I don't even know how I'm gonna do that yet. I want to buy one of those nice new ones like my schoolie bus Paul Anderson has on his bus. Schoolie bus buddy, I guess that's what you call them, right? So we're happy. I wanted to share with you one last tidbit about the locks on the bus. So what I did is on my new compartments, my Buyers Products brand compartments, I replaced all these locks. There's 4 of them. No, there's 3 right there. There's another one laying around someplace. Oh, here it is. So I got these 4 locks I took out, and I replaced them with locks that have these round keys right here. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned earlier in one of the other segments of this video, I recognized that key number from like 30 years ago in my utility capacity of my company I work for still. and there's a few of them that ring. So that was the impetus for me to go ahead and change to these kind of keys, which are less common, but I mean they're still, you know, around. At least on the new locks I have, it doesn't have the darn key number right on the lock. So here's some irony for you. There's the 4 new ones. I bought 5 locks, 4 for the 4 compartments and 1 for the fuel door. Now this is the, just by coincidence, this is the original, and this is the condition it was in, lock that locks the fuel door on my 2007 Thomas bus, CH545. It's the same exact key. There's the new one, and there's the old key that I got when I bought the bus. It's exact same thing. So do yourself a favor, if you got a CH545 or any of these cheapo locks, you might want to consider replacing them with something new.